Well, hi everyone. Babula and I are back with the first new moon in 2021. And what an extraordinary time that we are living in. I can't believe, I thought last year was a big year. So much has happened in early January, and which is actually what Babula was saying when we did our last update, was that going into January would be fairly cruisy, which it has been, you know, until then, and then things have just gone off the Richter scale, which is, again, also what she said. So this is the value in understanding astrology. So, so with that, why don't you start us off, Babula, with helping people understand what's going on in the world?
Well, I shall endeavour to do so.
From an astrological perspective.
Yes, so we're looking through the lens of astrology. And I just want to say too that, you know, it's a language and not everyone understands the language. And there may be people watching and listening that are very new to this or haven't, you know, learned or studied or investigated and might find some of it a little hard to follow. And I do like to make it as much as I can, you know, digestible for everybody. So, yeah, so let's have a look and see if we can unwrap this a bit in a way that's useful for people who have knowledge about astrology, but also for people who are quite new to it and don't necessarily understand everything we're saying. But even if you can just get a few bits out of it, you know, hopefully it'll be helpful. So let's talk about this new moon. It's a doozy. That's a word that I find myself using quite frequently. But
and that's coming up when?
That's on the exact timing. Now, I'm going to use Brisbane time here, and we don't have daylight savings in the east coast of Australia in Queensland. 13th of January at 3 p.m. is the exact moment of the new moon in Queensland time. So for southern states, that'll be 4 p.m., but 13th of January in Australia. And for anyone watching it from overseas, and I know some people do, then you'll have to make that adjustment, you know, so it'll be like 12th for many people in other parts of the world. So the last new moon we had 4 weeks ago was in Sagittarius, and it happened to be an eclipse. So we've sort of come out of that eclipse season, and this new moon is in Capricorn. And that's important because Capricorn, of course, has been such and continues to be such an important sign and energy and influence in the unfolding of everything that's going on the planet in recent times. Now, this new moon, and we will talk, I think, about Capricorn again and what it represents, because I'll say this 100,000 times if I need to, every single sign we can look at through a very positive lens and through a very negative. Every sign has its shadow side. You know, there is no sign that's better or worse than any other sign. There's no sign that's more important than any sign. They all take their place around the circle and are of equal value and significance, and they all have their issues. So this new moon on the 13th takes place at 23 degrees of Capricorn. And the new moon is always when the sun and the moon are forming an exact conjunction, they come together. And so for those few days, we see no moon in the night sky. It's a period of about 3 days of the dark moon, because when the sun sets in the west, the moon is with the sun and goes down with the sun. And so nighttime comes, there's no moonlight, dark moon. So this particular new moon is at 23 degrees of Capricorn and just happens to sit right next to the planet Pluto at 24 degrees of Capricorn. Pluto is invisible to the naked eye. We cannot see it because it was so far away. It was only discovered in 1930. And Pluto is a planet of immense power and potency.
It's intense.
Very intense. It is the ruling planet of Scorpio, and this planet represents processes of death, destruction, and annihilation. And out of that death and destruction, and by the way, folks, every one of us have been through strong Pluto transits in our life. And we all have Pluto somewhere in our chart. So it's not like, oh my God, that sounds terrible. Pluto's always here, but sometimes it's particularly active and has a strong focus. And Pluto's been a very important player throughout the journey from 2020 through to when it finally leaves Capricorn in 2023, 24. So this new moon is conjunct or right with or next to Pluto. Death, destruction, annihilation, and out of that process comes an energy of metamorphosis, regeneration, rebirth, new life. But something has to be, and I'll use kind of plain language here, killed off in order for something new to regenerate and be reborn. So it represents the process of death and rebirth. Think of metaphors like the caterpillar weaving a cocoon around itself, going into the dark, disintegrating, turning into goo, and all of the cells and systems and structures of that little caterpillar are completely being reformed. And at the appointed time, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it, because it's like, it's what's going on in the world.
Yes, absolutely.
And it comes out of the dark of the cocoon and emerges completely transformed. You know, and it's also the metaphor of volcanoes is very Plutonic as well.
Yeah.
It is a volcanic energy, and that's, you know, volcanoes are scary because they're so destructive and they're so powerful. And it's like something, because Pluto's the lord of the underworld. And volcanoes come from deep, 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 deep underground. Energy moves, pressure builds up, and this is what Pluto transits are like. And there's this almighty eruption, and out it comes. It's a purging. It's a release.
We've seen that, haven't we? There's been quite a lot of volcanic activity has increased as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I feel we're going to see a lot more in 2021. I think there'll be a lot more strong earth movements, as well as huge movements going on in our human civilizations.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're seeing that.
Yeah.
So it's a powerful energy. It's intense. It's not easy. It's not comfortable. Pluto represents the shadow side of human life in all of us, you know, so we're all confronted with things that we don't always want to be confronted with, you know. It is confronting. And but it's powerful, it's potent, it's unavoidable, it's happening. The other piece to this, well, there's more to say about it. I'll talk about Capricorn in a minute.
Yeah, I'd like to say something about that too.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I absolutely want to hear what you're seeing and understanding here too. So this new moon also, and Pluto together, we can't speak of this new moon without including Pluto. They're working together as a piece and are making a strong square to another body called Eris, who was discovered, I think, around 2005, if my memory serves me well. And Eris is in Aries at 23 degrees of Aries, making an exact square to the new moon and Pluto. And I'm sure we've spoken of Eris before, but let's tell a little bit more about that now for those who perhaps haven't heard it or just want to refresh their memories. In mythology, Eris is this figure, a goddess. She's like, in the fairy story, she's like the 13th fairy who wasn't invited to the party. Eris was not invited to the wedding because she was a known troublemaker. Like, you know, it's that person you go, oh, well, you know, let's all get together and go out to dinner or have a party, and there's someone like, oh, we don't want to invite that person. They'll just cause trouble, or they'll be difficult, or they're not very pleasant, or, you know, it's that sort of thing. Like, we're going to exclude that because it won't be nice. But Eris isn't invited to the wedding. And all the dignitary, you know, it's a special wedding, you know, gods and goddesses and special, you know, special people, heroes and so on are there in Greek mythology. She's not invited. She turns up anyway. so she gate crashes. She said they're not getting away with that. So she turns up, and through an action, and they're like, uh-oh, look who's just arrived. And she takes out of her gown this golden apple, solid gold, because that gets everyone's attention. And she offers it, and she says, and three of the beautiful goddesses are there, including Aphrodite, who's the most beautiful of all, but also Hera and Athena, I think it is. I can't remember. I think it's Athena. Three of the important goddesses. And she says, so I will offer this to whoever is considered the most beautiful of you goddesses. Well, that sets in motion a number of events that eventually lead to the Trojan War and the sacking of Troy. So she represents trouble, yes, but what she does is she reveals and exposes the shadow side. Because there's, she turns this event into a competition, and somebody, Zeus appoints young Paris to make the judgment call, and all these goddesses offer her something fabulous if he'll only choose her, so that they can get this golden apple. So, there's all this stuff that goes on in human life. Well, I'll give you this, this, and this if you pick me, And all these events eventually unfold to. So Eris has been in Aries since the beginning of last century, moves very, 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 very slowly, is still in Aries, will be for many years to come, but now is squaring this new moon and Pluto. So there is a great deal moving. So it's intense, it's strong. So we're seeing it in the world, but it's also alive and active in our own lives, particularly for those people who have planets or angles or anything in their own birth chart around those degrees of 23, 24 of Capricorn, of Aries, of Cancer, or Libra. These are the cardinal signs that will all be strongly impacted. So it's an important new moon, this one. So what did you want to say?
Well, I was just going to chime in with Pluto. I mean, I've been using the term constructive demolition for Pluto when I'm talking to people who, don't understand astrology. And I'm not an astrologer, but I've come to learn a lot from you over the last year particularly. And, it's the constructive demolition is, the problem is that I think people are quite concerned because they're getting stuck in the fear and because when people are in fear, they continue projecting fear, and that's a real concern. But so I've sort of tried to reassure them that, yes, this isn't great, but just step aside and get out of the way and let these things play themselves out, because we can only do what we can do at the grassroots level for people and give them support and all that. And trust that there are people at other levels who know what they're doing to go in and find solutions and for a more positive outcome. And I think that they are. But Pluto also, I was reading, represents complicated motives. So it's like layers upon layers upon layers. So just like we've seen, what we've seen recently in the US with people just pouring into the Capitol and doing all sorts of destructive things, there were other more positive missions at play from what I've read. And I'll just say this, that apparently there were more positive missions at play for the white hats, if you want to call them that, to go in and get information that they needed, and so that they could bring it out and then go on and work with that information to try and bring more truth and justice into the world around what's going on in the US. So that's just an example. I'm just using that as an example of complicated motives with Pluto. So what we see isn't always what's happening.
That's right.
Yeah, but it is deconstructing nonetheless under the surface, as you know, in ways that we really don't know until
That's right.
things come to the surface and we go, oh, where did that come from? You know.
Yes. Or we go, oh, so that's what's been happening.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, you know, he is the Lord of the underworld. So he operates from the underworld, and in that volcanic way brings things to the surface when the moment is right. Yeah. And so there are so many things going on in the dark and behind the scenes, and as it's complicated, layers and layers and layers and layers, and you know, secrets and so many things going on. And so, you know, the whole of last year has been intense and complex, and the process continues. You know, the process it's not over, it continues, because there is a great deal still to happen. And but it is intense, it is challenging, it's uncomfortable for so many, and depending on what lenses we're looking through, you know, it can feel exciting, it can feel terrifying.
Yeah.
But it's unavoidable. Like, there's an inevitability about these processes that are taking place. And, you know, I've been an astrologer for well over 30 years, and that's one thing it has taught me. Things happen when they happen at the appointed time, and we cannot avoid or ignore, you know, things that need to happen and unfold. But it's all in how we are with that, and how we process that, and how we what kind of choices we make in those times, you know. So each of us will do that in our own particular way, you know. No two people are going to process this in the same way.
Yeah. And especially Pluto, that planet, because it's like, if this isn't done by now, sorry, it's past its use by date, and that's gone. You know,
right.
So it's coming to terms with knowing that that's gone, and it's never going to come back the way it was, just like we know society is and the world situation is.
That's right.
But it's the processing and the inner processing of that whole experience, and coming to terms with it, and then knowing when to let go of that, because things have their time. Like you were saying, you know, things have their time, and times begin. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And when it's the end, it's time for something new.
That's right.
And that's okay.
And that's like the caterpillar to the butterfly, the metaphor I used. Like, when the time is right, this new creature emerges. Another beautiful metaphor for Pluto, of course, is the phoenix rising out of the ashes of the old, you know, glorious and magnificent. That's absolutely what this is. So it is very strong, but these are the times we live in. We live in strong times, and really it's been building up to this for centuries.
Yes. And I think the other thing about that is we're here at this time.
Yes.
We are here to observe, to experience, and for what that means, I'm not really sure, but for some reason, we are here now to live through that.
That's right. And I personally feel for myself that it's a great privilege and honor, and I'm very grateful. As challenging as it is some days, I'm really glad to be here to witness and participate in all of this.
Yeah.
So Capricorn, you know, we're all very excited about Jupiter and Saturn leaving Capricorn in 17th and 19th of December. Like, yeah, they're going into Aquarius now, out of Capricorn. But Pluto hasn't finished with Capricorn. So Pluto, this planet of volcanic purging, because, you know, even in the body, in medical astrology, Pluto represents the processes of purging toxins out of the system. Poisons, toxicity. Yep, that's his role. And so Pluto in Capricorn since 2008 will start to come out of Capricorn and cross that cusp of Capricorn Aquarius throughout 2023-24. By the end of 2024, Pluto will be fully out of Capricorn. In the meantime, he's got work to do. And he's continuing this process of purging. So what Capricorn represents, and again, we could spend 3 hours here just talking about each sign.
Yeah.
So just to give you a bit of a snapshot, both the positive and the not so positive side of Capricorn, and we're going to focus more on the negative because Pluto is here doing this work here right now. So, so Capricorn is a very potent and powerful earth sign that represents systems and structures and organization and responsibility, as every Capricorn knows. You know, they work hard, they're committed to their work spiritually. It's like Capricorns who are very oriented spiritually, they're dedicated, they're committed, they're disciplined, they're focused even about how they go about their spiritual development, you know, and it will have a certain structure to it, you know, and there's this absolute commitment to it. And Capricorn represents business and organizations. It also represents governments and all of the systems that we humans have set up to run human life on the planet, you know, country to country and intercountry and local and so on and so on and so on. Pluto's job when it goes through a sign, it spends many years in a sign, is to go, okay, and now we're going to clean out the dirt. Now we're going to uncover what has become corrupted here. That's his job, if we want to speak about it in that way. That's his job, to expose. And when he moved into Capricorn in 2008, that was when the world economic crash happened, you know, and there were some big scandals.
Yes.
So since then, this process has been continuing. Of course, in 2020, Pluto came together with Saturn and Jupiter, and it was on. That was when it all came to a peak. So that's what's going on in Capricorn. The exposure of the corruption that has been deeply embedded in world systems for a long time. And I think it's very appropriate to use the word patriarchy here with Capricorn.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a powerful sign, and it doesn't give up its established position easily. You know, but Pluto is a mighty energy, and, you know, will literally leave no stone unturned and do whatever it takes to clean it out.
Yes. Yeah.
Whatever that means to anybody. And people are going to hear that and kind of immediately think of, oh, that relates to this and this, and somebody else might see it very differently. That's just how it is. What that means will be perhaps something different to us all. So it's like, so we've still got a couple more years. Yes, Jupiter and Saturn have gone on ahead into Aquarius, but Pluto's still got a job to do. And this new moon is a very important piece of that, because Pluto is on this new moon and squaring. Well, Pluto's been squaring Eris all through 2020 and will continue to do so through 2021. So that's the new moon we're having on the 13th of January.
And I'm sure you're going to floor us with what else is happening.
Well, it's a busy time now, the second half of January. I just did a Facebook post yesterday, and first up just started, you know, speaking about it in general terms, and then I just listed. So if anyone wants to see that, jump onto my Facebook page, because I just listed date after date all of the planetary movements. And if you don't know astrology, it won't all make sense, but you might just get a feeling of it and just get the general gist of it. It's a lot. So shall we start? Let's have a look.
Let's do.
And I actually copied it from my Facebook page, and I've listed them because it's like, that's from the new moon, 13th, to the full moon 2 weeks later. And every single one of these dates in itself is significant. So, a lot to unwrap. So, by the way, on the 13th of the new moon, Mercury, which is currently in Aquarius, makes a square to Uranus, which is in Taurus now for 7 years, since 2018.
So what does that mean for people?
Okay, great question. So, like how many hours have we got, Sheryl?
Try and be succinct.
Because I've been an astrology teacher for so long, like I do find it challenging just to give a simple, short explanation for every planet, because there's so many different things to say about each planet and sign, but I will do my absolutely best to simplify. So Mercury is about our mind, thinking, communication, messages, information. In Aquarius, technology. Boys, there are a lot going on in the world of technology and social media and media and so on. Like it's
being purged. People are being cut off.
It's gone in. I mean, it's been going on all last year, but it's gone into overdrive in the last week. Like overdrive. So
cyber war.
Absolutely, it is. It absolutely is. So Mercury square in Aquarius, square Uranus in Taurus. Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius. It's the planet of revolution, consciousness, technology, rebellion, freedom, humanity. Mercury's in Aquarius, the sign of all those things I just said about Uranus. But Uranus is in Taurus, which is an earth sign. And one of the things that Taurus is to do with is money and monetary systems and banking and wealth and poverty and those kinds of things. There's more. It's also to do with the earth and nature as well, very much. So when Mercury squares Uranus, and some people might have that in their chart, our minds are very like switched on, possibly even agitated, might have difficulty sleeping. Like there is so much going on the mental plane now. Like everything is wired. And there is a lot going on in cyberspace, a great deal going on. And the other thing about when Uranus is very active, and by the way, last year Uranus was not particularly active. 2021, very active. It's like the universe says, okay, Uranus, you're on now. This year, you're on, you know, so he's a big, important piece of this.
So if there are people suffering from sleeplessness, like myself and many other people I've spoken to, that is why.
That's right. And over these coming weeks and off and on throughout the year, because there's a lot of Uranus Aquarius activation now. Throughout the year, and there'll be certain times when it will be particularly strong. Sleep can get really disturbed because our nervous systems, our brains and our minds are just like wired up, switched on. Many say, and I agree with this too, is there is a great deal of energy coming in from the cosmos on all kinds of levels. And because Uranus is also the light of consciousness, and it's like the volume's getting turned up every day. It's like, turn it up another notch, and then revelation, more information, more shocks, more surprises. And it's a lot for our brains, our nervous systems, our chakras, our electrical circuits to absorb. So we have to keep, expanding and opening. But a really super important piece of this is Taurus calls on us to, as much as we can, to ground ourselves on the earth. And it can be as literal as get your bare feet on the ground. Go and sit under a tree.
And look after your physical body.
Your physical body. Like keep that connection to the physical body and to the ground strong, because, my dad was an electrician. And he had Mars in Aquarius. And he I learned as a child that he was many other things, but one of the things was he was an electrician. That for electricity to be safe, it needs an earth wire. We all know that. And Uranus represents electricity and lightning storms. It's a wild energy. I'm glad I remembered to use that word, because it really is a wild energy. If we ground ourselves, we can take more of it. We can open ourselves, and we're anchored and grounded in the physical body and in the physical. And so even if it means you know, when you're feeling really stirred up and agitated or overly excited and restless, take those moments to stop, feel your body, feel your feet. Even if you're in lockdown, go out, stand on your patio if you're in a flat or a unit. If you've got a house, go outside into your garden, sit there, have a cup of tea, pull out a few weeds. Like, let's get real basic here, you know, take a few breaths. Those few moments, you know, throughout the day can make all the difference, because it's a lot.
It is a lot of energy, and I found that myself, even with the sleeplessness and other people too, that I'm wired all the time, and I'm not falling asleep during the day, even though I'm every night's only a few hours sleep. And, you know, it's just, and that's no good for our adrenal glands. And so that's why we have to focus on our physical body.
That's right.
You know, do some exercise, but get some rest as well.
Yes, rest, exercise. If you're able to go and get massage, or even a foot massage, or I often get neck and shoulder, because I carry a lot of tension in my neck and shoulders. It's a bit of an old chronic thing, and I get headaches from that. So I frequently get a little 20-minute neck and shoulder massage. And I can feel myself going, oh, that feels better. And I can I drop back down into my body.
Yes, yeah.
You know, so
even some chiropractic work, that's very good.
Craniosacral work, you know, anything like that, any kind of beautiful healing body work, nature, all of those things. So, okay, so on the 13th, new moon.
We haven't even moved past the 13th.
No, we're still on the 13th. Okay. But there's a lot happening on that new moon, as we've already spoken about just with the new moon itself. Mercury squares Uranus, Saturn in Aquarius squares Mars in Taurus. So you've got now, and I spoke about this, I did a workshop here in December, and we unwrapped the whole of 2021. And the theme of 2021 is a shift from the big focus from Capricorn to Aries to Taurus, Aquarius. So there's a lot going on in Taurus, and there's a lot going on in Aquarius. And these signs are square to each other, and which means that there's a certain tension between the two of them. So Saturn is at 3 of Aquarius square Mars. So you've got Mercury and Saturn in Aquarius, both squaring Mars and Uranus in Taurus. It's just a lot of tension, pressure. What's happening? Is that true? Is this true? I'm overwhelmed. It's exciting. It's terrifying. Like, just there's a lot going on. And remember, Aquarius takes us up into the cosmic realm, into the mind, technology, ideas, humanity. Taurus is grounded, practical, pragmatic earth. They kind of don't get each other. They're going, what are you talking about?
Yes.
So people who are perhaps more Taurian, they'll be saying, where's the proof? That's ridiculous. That couldn't possibly be happening. That's so over the top. That's so extreme. That's crazy. And Aquarius is going, I don't know why you don't see it.
Yes. Having difficulty seeing eye to eye, for sure.
Exactly.
Yes.
So let's move on. The day after the new moon, which is pretty much happening around the new moon as well, because this will be an influence for a few days. In fact, from now, Uranus himself, the ruler of Aquarius, is stationary. When outer planets that move slowly change direction, there's literally about a week, even more, but we'll say a week, when they appear to virtually stop at a particular degree and slowly change direction. Planets do not change direction in the sky, but from the Earth's perspective, they do, and they are important. They do have an influence. So Uranus, this planet that represents radical change, revolution, rebellion, chaos, upheavals, but its function is to awaken us to another level of consciousness and awareness and knowledge, which can be shocking, outrageous, or exciting and liberating, depend on your point of view. So while Uranus is squaring Mercury, it's also stationary, and it's been in retrograde motion for 5 months, and it's going to begin to move forward. So things will and are happening, and they are big things that are happening. The following day, on the 15th, the sun, which was part of the new moon and only 1 degree off Pluto, makes an exact conjunction to Pluto. So that's just like another step, another piece, if you like, of that new moon. Then on the 18th, Jupiter at 6 degrees of Aquarius will square Uranus at Taurus. So what we're getting is, over a period of a few days, we're getting Mercury, Jupiter and Saturn all making these squares to the planet Uranus in Taurus. So to put all that together, it's just so much going on that represents these energies that are in strong conflict and tension with each other, like really pushing against each other, and things are going to break apart. Things are going to crack open. Things are going to break open. It can be quite shocking, outrageous, a little and I'm talking about the world.
Yes.
And I'm also speaking about in our own personal worlds.
Yeah.
And for some people more than others, because for some people, they will have planets or angles or things in their chart that are at these degrees. And so they're personally going to be going through this powerful revolutionary upheaval, time of upheaval. And it's like, just sit tight, folks, because we can't control this. We can't change it. We have to just stay. I think it's about us all staying alert, awake, conscious, open, grounded.
Flexible too, I think.
Flexible,
adaptable. We have to adapt to the
adaptable.
changing times.
That's right. And we've said many times, haven't we, Sheryl, that we're not going back that way.
Yeah, yeah.
No matter how it all plays out and whatever it's leading us to, whichever way we want to look at it, we're not going back there.
And poor old Taurians particularly be having a hard time, like a friend of mine, because it's just, they want things to stay the way that they are.
That's right.
They don't like the change at all.
No, Taurus, especially as a fixed earth sign, has an innate resistance to change, and because its whole function almost is to, and this is a beautiful thing too, is to build and create stability.
Yes.
Nothing wrong with that. I know some wonderful, amazing Taurians who create the most beautiful art, or, they're like safe havens of stability, for those of us perhaps who aren't quite like that, like you can always rely and depend on these grounded, really grounded, earthy, beautiful Taurians. But it is a sign that does not like or appreciate shocks and surprises and change.
So it won't appreciate Uranus?
No. No. And
not at all.
Going on, that's right. Because there's no certainty in it. And there is no certainty, we don't know what's going to happen. And it's literally like that. We do not know what's going to happen next, from moment to moment, day to day. Yeah.
And it's a bit of a Humpty Dumpty world at the moment, that things are cracking open and you can't put stuff back together the way it was.
No.
It just doesn't fit.
No, because we're going somewhere else now. We're moving forward. It's all new, whichever way it goes. We're going to take the left fork. I won't even use that word, that fork or that fork.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the way it's been.
Yeah.
So then on the 20th, the sun leaves Capricorn, which it does around that same date every year. So the sun is in Capricorn for 4 weeks every year, roughly from the 20th of December to the 20th of January. So all the Capricorns are having their birthdays now during these weeks. And then it will leave earthy, pragmatic, strong, organized Capricorn and go into Aquarius. So now we get a 4 weeks of the sun shining its light in the sign of Aquarius. So once again, we've got another injection of Aquarian energy for 4 weeks. Then on the 21st, the following day, Mars, the warrior planet, which is now in Taurus, and I'm pretty sure we spoke about that last time.
I think so.
Yeah, because Mars finally came out of Aries, where it had been for over 6 months, and finally has moved into Taurus. Mars will make the exact conjunction to Uranus. So it's already in Taurus, moving up towards Uranus, which is at 6 degrees. And on the 21st, the day after the sun moves into Aquarius, Mars, the warrior planet of action, it's also the planet that rules battles and conflicts and war. You know, and we all have Mars in our chart. We all have Mars energy in us, but it's about action, you know, and conjunct Uranus, this kind of wild card of consciousness, the ruler of Aquarius. That is one of the most volatile combinations you can get. Anybody who has any kind of contact between Mars and Uranus in their chart, I have the trine, you know, I'm familiar with this energy in myself. It is that instinct to want to break out of old restrictive patterns or paradigms, you know, and it's very much about freedom and liberation, but it's full on, that Mars conjunct Uranus on the 21st. So it's like, for some, because people always ask astrologers, and I totally get it. So what's going to happen? What does that mean? Well, there is so much going on, like day by day by day, and they're all part of the same story in a way.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Yes.
I understand the energies, I get the gist, and I follow certain things which give me certain information that I think that might be true, but none of us know exactly, you know.
Yes.
And so I just follow these things with great interest. So then on the 23rd, Mars is at 8 of Taurus, squares Jupiter at 8 of Aquarius. So it's just like, it's another piece of the same thing. So what we're getting is a group of planets in Aquarius making these squares to Mars and Uranus in Taurus, like one after another, like they're all moving within days of each other. So it's hard to say on this date, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
It's a whole piece really over right through to the end of the month. And we'll get to the end of the month because then something happens on the last day of the month.
Jeez.
I know. And then on the 24th, the sun will be conjunct Saturn at 4 degrees of Aquarius. And on each of these dates, things are going to take place. And of course, during all of this, you know, there is the situation that's going on in the United States of America.
Yes.
And this is just such a central piece of this whole astrological story, you know, and I'm someone who likes to look at the charts of nations and countries and world leaders. I particularly these days with some, but I have for years. There's so much going on, and so I followed the charts of key figures in this story and the country. And just recently I found something in, this happens to me, I went, oh, Washington. So I went searching and found the birth date for Washington, because cities have birth dates.
Yeah.
When it's, you know, sort of, I don't know what the term is, declared or ratified or whatever as a city. And there is a birth date, I don't know the time, but the birth date for Washington. The Washington chart has just got the most powerful transits and progressions all over it, even more than the chart of the United States right now. So it's like it's on.
Yeah.
That's going on in the middle of all of this, as well as what's going on around the rest of the world. Yeah. So let's continue. And then on the 24th, a sun conjunct Saturn. On the 26th, the sun now at 6 of Aquarius squares Uranus. Now, there's another piece to all of this, which I've mentioned frequently throughout last year. Neptune in Pisces, this is a very different energy to all of this Aquarius, Taurus, Uranus story we've just been talking about. Neptune has been in Pisces for some years and will continue to be there for some years. But throughout most of last year and the early part of this year, Neptune is making squares to the north and south node. And on the 27th, that square becomes exact. We actually use the term perfected. It's like it becomes perfected. It's precisely the square. But it's been an important background influence for some months, actually.
For those people who don't know what nodes are, can you explain that?
Yes, thank you. I certainly will. So the north and south nodes are karmic points. They're not planets, but they're very important. And they actually are very, very important in Vedic or Indian astrology, but we use them very much in the West as well. And they are points in the sky that are precisely calculated to do with the moon as she orbits around the earth, as the earth orbits around the sun. So all those three pieces, moon, earth, and sun, are involved. And it's when the moon is crossing the ecliptic. So it's a bit complicated, but just understand that it's actually a point in space that is absolutely to do with the astronomy of moon orbiting the earth, earth orbiting the sun. And they are very important karmic points. We all have north and south nodes in our chart. The north node represents the south node. I'll do that first. Represents that's in the past. That's where we've come from. This is a very simplistic way to look at it, but I think it's helpful. The north node is more the balancing polarity point that's about, and this is where we're going, and this is what needs to be focused on. Now, the north node in Gemini is about, information, messages. What are we hearing? What are we learning? What are we reading? What are we discussing? What's going on in the world of communication? Gemini. Sagittarius is also about information and knowledge, but it's more to do with truth. The media has got a lot to do with Gemini and Sagittarius. And over the years, I've seen that a lot of journalists and people who work in the media will often have a lot of Sagittarius, Gemini energy in their chart. Both signs are often activated. So information. Now, Neptune squaring these nodes over this period of time and becoming exact on the 27th, just before the full moon, throws into the mix veils of illusion, fantasies. What's real? What's true? Is that really true? I'm not sure whether I can trust that information. That can't be right. Oh, he's lying. She's lying. That's not correct. Why are you listening to that person? They're telling you lies. Why are you listening to, it's like, and you're hearing this all the time with people. I don't know what's true anymore. I don't know what's real anymore.
Yeah.
Because there is so much misinformation, disinformation, confusion, censorship.
Yeah.
Who do you believe?
Yeah, that's right.
It's very confusing. It's very overwhelming. Sometimes people just go, I can't take in anymore. I'm just not going to even turn the computer on anymore. Or, I'm going into information shutdown because I'm in information overload.
Yeah. Information free zone.
but that's right. So this is in the field. And Neptune, again, we could speak for hours about what Neptune's all about. But in the end, Neptune says, just keep letting go. It's all about trust and faith. Because, Gemini will often say, well, I need facts here, and someone will post something online, declaring, this information, and then someone will respond and say, that's not true. This is the truth here, and share another source, and they're completely opposing points of view.
Yeah.
From supposedly credible sources. So that's just going on all the time. And it gets very confusing and very murky and very, it's like everything's shape-shifting constantly. These three signs, Gemini, Sagittarius, and Pisces, are what we call mutable signs. Everything is constantly moving. It's moving, shifting, changing, shifting sand. So that's on the 27th. Is there anything more you want to ask about that? Do you think that's...
Well, I was just going to add that, you know, when you've got those shifting sands, there's no solid foundation to build anything new on yet.
Yes.
Yet, because that will come, but not yet.
Yes.
Because all of this has to come out there. And I think, you know, that Sagittarius-Gemini connection, you know, Gemini wants the facts and Sagittarius is saying, you know, trust and faith, you know, which is what it's very much about, because it's a sign of honesty. So there's, you know, this, it's a real fight. It's the whole thing, the whole situation all last year in regard to information. This has all been going on, what you're saying, from the beginning, because people go, that doesn't make any sense. What? You know, so that confusion just reigns. And I'm thinking of Neptune is like trying to see the truth is like trying to see underwater. You know, it's just blurry, and it's going to be like that for a while. Yeah.
That's right. It's blurry. It's foggy. It's like there's these veils of mist. So a bit like the mists of Avalon, you know, like trying to find our way through the mists. Yeah. And we're having to let go of a great deal of what we thought was true and real. We're having, because Neptune is the planet of dissolution, of dissolving, like dissolving, falling away. It's falling away. There's nothing to hold on to anymore. And the other piece of it, when Neptune is strong, and this is, you know, people experience this when they're having their own Neptune transits at different times in their life, people become extremely tired, exhausted. They feel worn down. They feel like, I just want to sleep. I can't take anymore. I'm overwhelmed. I'm exhausted. Yeah, because it can feel like it's draining my life force away.
Yeah.
Neptune, by the way, also in medical astrology has a great deal to do with addictions. So for some people, like, this is all too much, you know, give me another drink. But it's also, what was I going to say there? I do this all the time. My mind kind of goes. There was another piece to that. So hopefully it'll pop in later. That's frustrating. There was something I was going to say. I've just confused myself. Well, I am quite Neptunian. but you know, but Neptune is also intuition, you know.
I was just going to say that.
Yes, and having trust, you know, and faith that just got to keep letting go and trusting that all this is unfolding as it needs to.
Yeah,
in ways
absolutely.
that we can't understand or know.
I think while we continue to look outwardly for the truth, where it's not going to come, we have to, I think, in a way, it's serving a purpose for us to actually reconnect with that inner voice within us, isn't it? Because if you let go of that external knowledge and listen to your inner voice, and sometimes we can just sit quietly with our hand on our heart and just ask a question, and the answers come. You know, am I going to be safe? Is everything going to be all right? How are the finances are going to work? All this, and information just comes.
That's right.
So we've got that connection all the time, but we get so focused on external information to tell us what's real. You know.
That's right. That's right, and that's a good point about Neptune too. It's what's real. It's real, which is a big question of the ages, isn't it? You know, all the mystics and, you know, the spiritual path is pretty much loaded with that question. So what is reality?
Yeah. So I think we have to tune into our moral compass, into our information connection from external sources, but not from the worldly sources as well, because you know we have a lot of abilities, faculties that we don't tap into, telepathic abilities, psychic abilities, and you know we maybe this is a time for us to start utilizing that a bit more, you know, tapping into that.
I agree, Sheryl. And I think all this Aquarius energy now that's coming in, I think we're going to see that more and more, like little kind of centers in our brain and consciousness are going to be opening more and more and more, the more that we are open to that, you know, and I really do see that. Absolutely. Absolutely. So just one parting thing about Neptune, which, by the way, has been an influence for some months with this connection to the nodes, but it becomes precise on the 27th. I mentioned that, you know, often people just feel exhausted, and really, I think we've all been through periods of that. I know I've been in and out of it in recent months, like, oh, I'm so tired. But because we are processing a great deal. But sometimes it can also be people can get very, very emotional and teary and just need to cry. And so I just say to people, then just cry. Let yourself fall apart. Sometimes we just need, because if we try to hold on to it all, that takes a lot of energy. It is exhausting because the world is falling apart.
Yep.
And sometimes we need to allow ourselves to just go to bed and just cry for a day if you need to. Just get under the doona. Well, it's a bit hot for the doona, but, you know, go to bed and just read a book and have a good cry. If that's what you're feeling, you need to, like, follow the feeling. That's Neptune, is feeling. Neptune is not about logic and mind, it's feeling. It's all feeling, especially in Pisces.
Yeah, and I think this is a time to build our resilience. And anyone watching this on this channel as well, if you scroll back a bit, you'll find a particular present discussion. Actually, it was a conversation between Dr. Nicole Gruel and myself about how to build resilience in times of like we have now.
Good. Very, very good. Yep. So then we come to, I think we're just kind of on pretty good timing here. We come to the 29th, which is the full moon. And this is an interesting one because the full moon, of course, is the halfway point of the 4-week lunar cycle. And this cycle begins with this Capricorn new moon on the 13th. It comes to a culmination point on the full moon at 29th when the sun, now in Aquarius, is opposite the moon in Leo. So the full moon will be at 9 degrees of Leo, in an perfect opposition to the sun at 9 degrees of Aquarius, but the sun will be conjunct Jupiter in Aquarius. So we will definitely be talking about that. And I'm just checking. Yes, so Jupiter is at exactly 9 degrees. So Jupiter is going to be on that full moon across that Leo Aquarius axis. So that's a whole other story, because between now and then, a lot is going to unfold. A lot is going to happen. A lot is going to go down, as they say. So we won't sort of talk about that yet because there's so much we don't know between now and then, and there'll be a lot more to say about it when we get there.
And I expect there'll be a lot happening in the next 2 weeks anyway.
Great.
A lot. Yeah.
A lot on a daily basis. And depending on what is your source of information, you're going to get different points of view about and different interpretations of what's going on, whether you're watching mainstream media news, whether you're watching alternative news, whether you're watching both, whether, you know, wherever you're getting, or whether you're getting it from other people and conversations, there's going to be so many different conflicting pieces of information flying around about what's actually taking place. But a lot will be happening.
So stay calm.
Keep breathing.
Yep. Try to, exactly. Let yourself just process, let yourself feel what you feel
Yep.
about it. move through those emotions. That's really important.
Yep.
Get rest, but get exercise outside.
Yep.
Even if we're in the last day of, and when we're recording this, the last day of the 3-day lockdown in Brisbane, and who knows
whether it will be extended. That's right.
Exactly. So at least if you don't want to go walking with a mask on, walk around your backyard, lay out in the sun, put a chair out, a towel out on the ground, and let some sunshine in, because that sun is such a natural, it lifts you up so much. It's amazing.
So much.
Yeah.
We need sun energy. Absolutely. So sun and fresh air, get as much as, and if, when we have, times of the day where we just go, oh God, it's enough. I need to not do this anymore, or whatever it is, just go and do something you like. Like I paint.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just go and I get a canvas that I've thought, I'm not into that painting anymore, and I just start putting paint all over it. And I just go and have some fun, and it completely shifts the zone I'm in, and I put on music and I just give myself a good time for a while to just paint and dance around the studio,
Yeah.
So whatever, or I get to play with my grandchildren, or, those things that take us out of that realm. If we're, involved in that sort of realm of what's going on in the world, whatever it is that's going on in our lives, to de-stress.
Yes.
And we all know what it is that de-stresses us, even if you just need to lie on the couch and watch a nice movie.
Yes.
Whatever just gets you out of that zone, because we can't stay in that 24/7. It's too much.
Yeah. So we will be back in 2 weeks with you for the next lunar cycle, and extraordinary times that we live in, for sure. But we look forward to seeing you again. We hope you've gotten something out of this. And if you have, please give us this video a like and with a thumbs up, and share it around, because people want to know what's going on now. They want to know what's coming more than ever. So if you think it'll help someone, please share it with them. And please remember to subscribe to the channel as well, so you don't miss out on any of our notifications when we post these.
And I'll be scheduling more online seminars and things too. And I'm even considering doing another beginners course online this time for people who just want to know more about the basics. Yes. And I'm always available for personal readings too, if anyone's interested in that.
Wonderful. And they can find you on your Facebook page, Babula Clement.
Send me a message there, and we can connect that way.
Wonderful. Okay, well, bye everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye.